Okay, so you really want to know, huh? Fine. I'm gonna start by telling you this. And this is important, so listen up. Your entire life, this one and many others, you've been a god who uses its absolute power to make yourself powerless. Entire cultures, especially this one, have all been afraid of their weaknesses, supposedly, when in reality, they've all been afraid of their power. This goes beyond the matrix of reality. This is something much deeper than that. This is eternal. This is fully realizing your consciousness. This is infinite. This is evolution. This is our divine right.
All right, everybody, welcome to the podcast. We are recording this podcast. I'm in Georgia. I've got an amazing guest all the way from Texas, Mr. Jordan Bowditch. And thank you so much for being a part of the show today, my friend. I'm just going to introduce a couple of things really quickly for the folks out there. I just want to let you guys know how much I personally appreciate Content Safe for keeping us safe from cancel culture. And also making sure that I'm staying honest, because whatever I do and say on this podcast is going out to the blockchain, and I'm pretty sure there's no scrubbing that. So thank you to Content Safe. You guys are amazing. If you are looking for a little help in that department, go to contentsafe.co or send me a message. I can put you in touch. I want to talk about my good friend Lindsay and her app that she's working on. She is working on a barter app. It's called Better Than. She also has a podcast called Better Than Podcast, and she has a huge vision for this, and I'm really excited. It's a great way to really connect with your already existing physical community as well as online community and do some things a little bit outside the box. So give that a peep, betterthan.world. I'm going to be at the Midwest Peace and Liberty Festival. That is August. I think I'll be there the 13th and 14th. Of this year. That's coming up really soon, and I'm excited about that. I'm going to be chatting and doing a little comedy, maybe a little karaoke. We're going to have lots and lots of fun. I'm looking forward to that. And finally, check out Magic at Magic on the Mountain. It is a Contact at the Cabin event. I'll be with Brandon Powell and Joe Roop, and we're going to be talking about magic, manifestation, breath work, all this stuff with the Grime America guys. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's in the Petrified Forest in Arizona. It's about half sold now. So you want to go ahead and get on there and get it going. We can be together physically in Arizona in the Petrified Forest. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So today joining me, I have Jordan Bowditch. He is a men's coach and so much more. Very funny, very unique guy. I've been following him for a while, and we had a podcast scheduled, and I totally dropped the ball and missed it. But he's got a program called Manifestation. I've been looking over. It looks awesome. I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. And we'll go ahead and get started. You can follow him at Conscious Bro on Instagram. Jordan, thank you for enduring that super long intro, and welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Thanks for having me. That was an awesome intro. I was like, damn, you're up to a lot of shit, man. I want to come. I want to come to the Petrified Forest in Arizona and breathe with some men. Let's go.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's going to do the cold water stuff. You know, we talked about it last week. So I've never done that before. I've seen a couple of videos of you actually doing that, and it looked cold. Yeah,
it is quite cold. Your cock and balls disappear. They go into the turtle shell, not to be seen till the winter is over.
That's right. I can believe that fully. Yeah. Like, can you talk to me a little bit about the process of that? Like, what happens to your body and in your mind when you get into that ice cold water?
Oh man. Like, I do it usually at least 2-3 times a week, like, ice cold in the 30s or 40s. And the minimal effective dose to really get the best benefits is 3 minutes. So that's what I do, sometimes a little bit more. And at like the very end, I'll dunk my head and hold my breath under as long as I can. And it is every single time, it is mental warfare, bro. And certainly physical, right? But like the physical is fine. It's more the mental piece to overcome. And, again, I've done it hundreds, if not thousands of times. And still every time I'm like, oh, fuck, I don't want to do this. Why do I do this to myself? Yeah, but certainly there's incredible health benefits, and those just keep piling up. Kind of one of those little known pillars to longevity that's becoming more well known. But even that aside, those health benefits, it is that mental war. It's like sharpening the warrior spirit within me. And I just see the value in that and how that permeates the rest of my life, having that split second of amazing courage and taking that risk. If I make that a practice in all areas of my life, when the war is at my doorstep, I show up prepared.
I love that, man. I've actually been recently getting into, I just finished reading Iron John by Robert Bly.
I've heard of it.
Dude, I don't know how I missed it. One of my clients, actually, he wants to do like rites of passage for young men, and he put it on my radar. I had no idea, because I've read, The Way of the Superior Man and several books in that sort of vein, but it was really interesting to me, as well as, and I'm sure you're familiar with King, Warrior, Magician, Lover.
Definitely.
Yeah. So he definitely references that as well. And so I've been learning a little bit about this stuff. I think it's super interesting, super fascinating. I would love to expound on this. When did you start working with men, and when did you find out that it was something that you wanted to contribute?
Yeah, I think it most notably started in college. I was in a fraternity at San Diego State, Sigma Chi. And, I didn't think that I would necessarily do the whole frat boy route, but it was like, that was the scene at San Diego State. It's like, if you're in a fraternity, Greek life, like that's where you have the most fun. And so I was like, all right, cool. My friends were doing it. And I went to some like the open house rush events. Like, this seems cool. This brotherhood, I'm into this. Like, don't threaten me with a good time when it comes to fun with bros. And little did I know that it was so much more than, all the stereotypes that are, and to be fair, stereotypes are a thing for a reason. By no means do I dismiss or say, oh, none of that shit's true. Plenty of it was true. But the unsung hero of those experiences for me certainly is that brotherhood, the rites of passage, the initiations that were so profound, life-changing, and things that I use all throughout my life today, both within my men's work and the retreats and initiations and things that I facilitate, and in like my relationship with my fiance. It's a gift that keeps on giving, and the ritualistic elements to it were like, I had never experienced anything like that, where you can take something that's physically and or mentally challenging, and you have a group of guys that are fighting that good fight with you, and you sprinkle some like strong kind of ritual intentionality around it. And all of a sudden it becomes this peak experience where you truly go through in this container, whether it's a few minutes, few hours, days, weeks, months, years, whatever, it's this hero's journey. And on the other side of it, like, you're a renewed hero forged in the fire. And so that's where it really started for me, was in that context. And then after that, it was kind of like, okay, now what? I graduated, got my marketing degree, putting it to good use in a corporate marketing job, like a good boy's supposed to do. And, and I'm grateful for even that experience. But after a few years, it was like, no, this is not it. This is not like my personal legend, little alchemist throw in there. But yeah. And from that point, it was, to kind of speed it up and make the long story somewhat short, I started working for a brand called Bulletproof, which probably most people are familiar, Bulletproof Coffee. So I was one of the early startup employees with them. And that was my dream job at the time, man. Like, I couldn't imagine working for such a badass brand. I'm drinking my Bulletproof Coffee right now in this moment. And so I traveled all around the country and got to be like a face and evangelist for the brand. I was the national educator, and really just went balls deep into personal development on that journey, and was exposed to just all various aspects of self-help. Got to go to like incredible high-level masterminds. I went with the founder and former CEO Dave Asprey to a lot of those, and just got to be a fly on the wall. And that was where I got to like integrate some of the old parts of my fraternity experience with more of the new school personal development, and create my own flavor of this kind of work. And many iterations later, parts of different groups and being a part of various retreats myself, I was like, all right, I'm ready to like do this on my own for my livelihood and for my purpose and career. And that kind of brings us to today, more or less.
Man, that's awesome. That's a cool story. I love how you, said, you know what, I'm not feeling this. I think we've all had similar experiences to that, where
Sure.
we're chasing something that we're just like, this is not it. My personal legend. I love the Alchemist reference, by the way. Such a good book.
Mhm.
But
So
yeah,
good.
I mean, you know, at that point, that takes a lot of courage to say, you know what, and to just admit it. Because
Yeah.
like there's a big time crossroads there where it's like, all right, I'm just gonna keep stuff my heart in a box and just
Yeah.
keep on this path and just suffer and struggle through it.
Mhm.
Versus I'm going to take a risk and
Yeah.
I'm gonna try something different. And I think it's awesome that you did that. And now, you know, you have that experience to draw from when you're working with other people, and you can kind of,
Yeah.
you know, but imagine, you know, the completely different life you might have if you
Dude,
hadn't.
totally. Yeah. And I'll double click on that really quick, because a part of the story that I didn't mention is that turning point for me. And I love using like the backdrop of the hero's journey experience. So, you know, I'm the hero in my ordinary world, being an ordinary boy or girl. And I'm kind of just going through the motions of life. It's not particularly exciting. It's not super purposeful. And then all of a sudden there's this call from the universe, and it's the call to adventure. And typically the hero refuses that call for some time. And that's part of the process. And certainly I was refusing that call for quite some time. And the call for me was, it was a combination of many things. It was the universe just fucking kicking me in the dick, man. It was a relationship of 5.5 years. The college sweetheart kind of deal was coming to an end. My fraternity was actually getting kicked off campus, and I was the alumni liaison, the chapter advisor, they call it at that time. So I was facing maybe even like some criminal charges because of hazing, because it was a very physical experience, like, you know, boot camp type of stuff was involved in that. And this job was just getting painful to show up to every morning. And so all of this is happening, and it's the universe telling me, bro, you got to blow it up and start over, like make space for what really wants to come through you. And right around that time, I read a book for the first time for leisure. So this was about 10 years ago now. I think I was like 25. And it was The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, a classic. And it's, side note, pretty cool. He lives here in Austin. I've gotten to get to know him a little bit, friend of a friend kind of scenario. And just the impact that man has had on my life and millions of others can't be overstated. So I read this book, and it kind of detonated a bomb that was already going off of like, oh, I can do things differently. And a tactic I used from that book was negotiating a remote working situation with the company I was working with at the time in San Diego. Cool. And so I was able to do that so that it made the transition a little easier into like what the next chapter of my life wanted to be. And so sold everything I owned except for a handful of things I could fit in my car, and lived out of my car for almost a year with my blue nose pit bull, Biggie James Smalls, who's still alive and well today. He's actually laying behind me, taking a snooze. Yeah, he just turned 10 this year. And so that's what really kicked things off. It was like, all right, I got to like just drop all this dead weight and kind of start over and see what wants to come through next.
Man, that's awesome, dude. That is the definite, you know, beginning point for a journey for sure.
Sure.
So you're still in San Diego at this point,
mm-hmm.
and you got the opportunity to go and work for Bulletproof. You want to talk about how that happened? Like how that happened?
I mean, speaking to kind of like the courage and taking risks and being audacious enough to think that I can live the life of my dreams. That kind of mantra is so potent. Now, the caveat to that is not getting so attached that when it doesn't happen or I get rejected along the way, that I get, you know, I just curl up and just like close up and like, oh, I don't want to do that again. That hurts to be rejected. I'm not good enough, all that kind of stuff. It's like, no, keep putting in the reps, hack that fear of rejection. Because on the other side of 10 rejections is the thing that actually is meant for you. And so to that point, I had started drinking Bulletproof Coffee. My older brother had introduced me to the brand, and he was very much one of my mentor allies in this process, to bring it back to the hero's journey reference. And also showed me the Tim Ferriss 4-Hour Work Week book, and just really helped me as I was taking these steps, and was like encouraged. He was like my accountability buddy. When I said, I think I want to do this, I think I should do this, you know, shitting all over myself, he was like, dude, when are you going to do it? Yeah, he was asking me that question, which is a fun one to ask, because I know left to my own devices, sometimes I can talk a lot of game, but I got to walk that talk, you know? And so he really helped me with that. And so he sent me a job description for a junior marketing assistant for Bulletproof. And this was, you know, there's only like a handful of employees at this time, very early on. And, that was a demotion to say the least from where I had been. But I was like, I don't give a shit, man. I'll scrub toilets to work for a company like that. It was a remote job situation again. And it was getting to use a lot of like my skill set that I built in college and beyond, even though I didn't really want to go in that direction. Leveraging those skills in the context of a mission, movement, and brand like that, I was like, I can do that. And I just trust that everything else will fall into place on that path. And so I created a funny 5-minute video of why they should hire me. And this was the first time I really stepped into my comedy in an intentional way. Mm-hmm. And it was so fun, dude. I was just in this crazy flow state for a week where, I don't know, 3 to 5 hours a day, I was just like fucking around with my computer and editing things together and just seeing what was coming up. And so you can still find it on my YouTube channel. I partially cringe when I look at it because I'm like, oh, you fucking goon. But I'm also like, dude, former version of myself, you are a badass, courageous motherfucker. Like, well done, because it got me the job. And ended up working for them for like 6 years, and all the things I mentioned before, just incredible experience. I get God bumps even talking about it, and still even have some ownership in the company. It served me so well.
That's awesome, man. That's so cool. I can look back at my last, video that I posted to YouTube and still cringe, like
yep.
It never ends. But I love that attitude of just, you know what, man, like, good for you. Way to, put yourself out there. Any words for people who are maybe a little hesitant to do something like that?
Yeah, it's like probably, phrase, mantra, something I say to myself is, don't be caught in that what if. That looking back and be like, what if I had done this? You'll always regret what you didn't do. Maybe that's the best way to say it.
That's great.
You might regret what you did do. And but I would much rather know because I did the thing and acted from that courageous place than be like, oh, what if I had done that? It's like, oh, like a life full of that shit creates dis-ease, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, and I've heard this somewhere, I don't know where, but that in like nursing homes and things like that the people in there who are the most miserable, who are like really suffering through, are the ones who they didn't do any of the things that they thought they maybe wanted to do with their life. It's not what
Makes sense.
did do. It's what they didn't do. That like that gnashing of teeth sort of feeling. Yeah. And I know, I mean, even if it's something simple as not going to talk to somebody that you feel inspired to talk to.
Totally. Absolutely. Like, and those are the more micro moment experiences that then build up to the more macro, like the bigger stakes at play, when it's like, there's this pivotal moment or just like a goal or like something I want to do. And if I do those little things throughout my normal life, it's training. Once again, just like the ice bath experience, it all plays into one another.
Yeah, that's so good, man. I love that. And it's a little bit. It's so easy. I still fucking do it. Like, I'm like, well, I'll just do this one thing and then everything will, snowball. No, it's never gonna work that way. And I think that we really start to see results once we get very far past. It's like a boat wake, it's like, we could be like looking back behind us. How big is the boat wake, but it's not really until I think we really are like, you know what, I don't care what's back there. I'm just going to keep going this way. And then I think those results, they start to kind of fall into our life,
It's a great analogy.
I love that. So when did you move to Austin?
I moved here about 2.5 years ago now. And I love it, man. This has quickly become my forever home, which, I did not expect that. I'm a Cali boy, which people from California don't say Cali, so cancel, delete what I just said. But I grew up actually half in California and half Ohio. So I was born in California, parents got divorced, spent most of my adolescent years in Ohio, summers with my dad back in California. And then my freshman year of high school, I moved back to California full-time. San Diego for like 10, 11 years, LA for a few years, little stint in Northern California and Santa Cruz, and met my fiance on Facebook. Maybe we'll get into that at some point or not. And I really wooed her with a voice note, a freestyle rap in a voice note. That was how I made first contact. And so we were doing the kind of like travel long distance thing. And then it was like, okay, where do we want to go next? California is the default. It's like, I've been there, done that. It's awesome. I love it. I know it works. But like, what are some wild cards out there? Some places that we've wanted to experience a bit more and just, yeah, do that experiment. And I had been coming to Austin a lot, mostly for Bulletproof, as well as like for fun. There's a couple bachelor parties that were here and just various things going on. So I was coming here probably 3, 4, 5, 6 plus times a year. And, it's like Whole Foods headquarters here. So that brought me here a lot too. And I was like, knowing that at some point I would spend a season of life here, whether it was 3 to 6 months, a year or two, or a few, it was that kind of a thing. And so Alexa was very much on the same wavelength. She's like, all right, I like Austin too. She'd only been here a couple times. And a couple of my super close friends had moved here in the couple years before that. And so that was also enticing. I could kind of drop into a bit of a community with some really close friends, JP Sears being one of those, the conscious comedian. And so we actually came and stayed with him for a weekend while we house hunted and just got more of a feel through the lens of, could this be our home? Like, does it have the elements that are most important in our value system? And quickly we were like, yes, like we want to do this. Let's give it a try. And it just, once we made that decision, we got here, things just really started to fall into place. I've prided myself in being a kind of magnet for community and a super connector of sorts. I think that's like one of my unique superpowers. And that went on overdrive once I got here. And now I have this core squad of like 12 to 20 people that are a combination of, a lot of them are couples. And that's been a huge game changer for me and my partner as well, is having like, I call it the Conscious Couples Coalition.
Yeah.
And that's been just such a massive up-leveling in my life and certainly in our relationship. And so, yeah, I'm planting roots here, man. We're going back to California for the first time in a couple of years, actually next month. And I'm excited about that because it's been a while and it's funny, but I've had like no desire to. I've said it to many people. I would not rather be any place in the world right now than Austin, Texas. Yeah. Like this, progressive, liberal city, as most major cities in the US are, right. But in this uber conservative red state, it creates this polarity and this balance and this just bigness of energy that I really dig.
Man, that's cool. Yeah, the energy here is kind of similar,
I've kind of heard that about Athens specifically.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, like our biggest export's the hipster, like that's kind of how it works. So it's interesting because you've got all these, younger college students who are actually kind of conservative, and very much like fraternity sort of types on one side of town. And then on the other side, you've got, these, really progressive, hipster types, who are very, interested in all of that. So there's definitely like, a little bit of friction between those two things. They even have like one of the streets downtown is called the Khaki Line. You cross on one side, you're on one side of the Khaki Line.
Oh shit.
You cross
That's
on the
fun.
other, there's, it
gets West Side Story. I get it. Yep.
But yeah, it's really cool. I love that too. And I've spent a lot of time in California too. I love California. I used to go there at least a couple of times a year before last year. And I haven't been out there in a while, but it's probably only a matter of time before I'm out there again. And you guys will be going back to Southern California, I assume?
We're actually going to start in San Francisco. JP's doing a comedy show there. So we make an excuse to go out there. And then we're going to do the Coastal Drive and then end in San Diego, which I've done that drive many times, but not like this, not like with my lady, kind of taking our time and taking the longer routes that are more on the water. So I'm looking forward to that.
Man, that's awesome. It's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful state. I truly love it. And I love that drive too. I've done it myself from San Francisco or even north of there. I was in Willits clipping weed once and I hated it, bro. It was the worst. I was just happy to get out of there, man. I've never been anywhere so remote. And I used to live in Montana, West Virginia, all these like super podunk, scary, redneck backwoods places. I've never been more afraid for my life than I was in Northern California, They're like,
it can be a little scrappy up there.
It is. It's definitely the Wild West. And, they're like, well, if a helicopter shows up, just start running. And I'm like, run where, like, oh my God. But anyway, I don't want to share too much about that. That was quite a few years ago. And I got actually pulled out there for a different reason. A
Mhm.
friend of mine was wanting to shoot like a sizzle reel sort of pilot for
Mhm.
a show called Trimmigrants. It was our idea to like
Oh, I
get an
love that.
RV
Uh-huh.
and like pick up all the hitchhiking wooks and interview them as we took them all over. Well,
Uh-huh.
they decided that it would be a better idea to buy one of those machines that creates oil out of stems and seeds instead. So I
Mhm.
went out there and I'm like, what? And then, so, you know, it didn't quite work out like I thought it was, but it was overall a good experience. I was happy to get back home, and definitely
Mhm.
made for a great story.
Sure.
I want to get back to, you know, comedy a little bit. And
Mhm.
that's the first real comedy video that you ever made, was
Yep.
to introduce yourself to Bulletproof, which I think is brilliant.
Mhm.
Of course you stood out. Of course you know, they knew exactly who you were. And
Yeah.
let's talk about that and the feeling that that gave you, and how that maybe inspired you to do more stuff, and how that started to develop.
Yeah, it's if I'm looking back on that, I had minimal distractions. So at this point, I had been living in and out of my car for a few months, and I was with my mom in Ohio, where I grew up in my adolescent years. And I was on my way out of the other job that I was working remotely. I was just super uninspired and doing the bare minimum to just, not feel like an absolute asshat.
Mhm.
And so I had a lot of time, and I was feeling this bubbling of creativity come through me. And so I had this opportunity to have it manifest, physically, so to speak. And so I gave myself that space and didn't allow distractions. And it wasn't hard once I got into the flow. And, there's a beautiful book, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. So good. An incredible author across the board, all of his stuff. It's like so wide ranging. Gates of Fire, side note, maybe top 3 favorite book ever.
Awesome.
It's
Check it out.
great on Audible too. But, he talks about in The War of Art, resistance and getting over resistance, and that it's at every turn, especially when you're doing like the creative work, that will want to come up. So just being aware of that and doing my best to stay the course whenever that would come up, because there's infinite things that could distract me from doing the most important thing. And so once I kind of would break through that, I would get into this insane flow state where no one was telling me what to do. It was my blank canvas. I had these, parameters of 5 minutes, and I had a few questions to answer in this application. And I just then played with it. I was like, I'm going to use every square inch of that 5 minute, and I'm going to have a lot of fun with it. And so it partially was me writing down notes. It was me doing many takes and then watching them and being like, how is my comedic timing? How do I just feel watching myself, and then splicing it up. And, when you're doing those kind of like YouTube videos and you want to splice, they want to be fast, so that just like it keeps people's attention. And I had, again, this was, I guess, maybe 8 years ago. It was YouTube and all that was well established, but it wasn't like it is today. Let's just say a lot of like the YouTube influencers and comedians and stuff, that was not super huge, big enough. So I had enough to like look at and have inspiration from. And it was like, once I had that proof of concept, oh, I've always known that I'm fairly funny, or I've thought so. I've been delusional enough to think so. And then when I did this, I was like, and the response I had from friends and family when I was showing it to them, and then certainly when I got hired, I was like, oh yeah, there's something here. This is a gift and like a skill that I can really hone in on. And so then from there, it was like just being more aware and giving myself permission to exercise that skill and that gift in any and all contexts. And so, 8 years later, there's been many representations of that. Most recently, comedy brand Kinda Conscious, where me and a good friend of mine, Kitch, we just would like kind of very much inspired by JP Sears. He's my literal best friend. He's going to be the officiant at my wedding later this year.
Awesome,
And he has been an incredible mentor, influence with what he's doing. And certainly the shift he's taken in like the last year, where he went from, I certainly wouldn't have called it slapstick, but a little just lighter satirical parody, to so meaningful and like earth shattering. He has now become this force for freedom, and doing it in a very playful, connective, purposeful way. And so that's where I see me kind of shifting into more too, is And you could look at it through the lens of moving from kind of son to father, if you will, like the playful son to the benevolent king, where it's like, okay, I want to rule my kingdom. I'm getting married later this year. Kids is on the horizon. The child's play stuff is fun. There's a place for that. And like, I'm called for something a little bit bigger. And again, seeing someone like JP, who's really stepped into that, but put in the reps to get to that place where he established his foundation to where now he can hold insane amounts of attention and energy. Because, he is the focal point of a lot of mostly good and praise, but plenty of the cancel culture, intense stuff. And so, yeah, I think I'm in the gestation period, post kind of conscious. We had about a 6-month stint where we were having a lot of fun, but again, lighter comedy, not the implications of like the COVID era were not there at that time. And that was actually part of the market shift, was a pretty intense, firsthand experience with cancel culture that actually more or less caused kind of conscious to come to an end, which was very difficult, had a grieving process, but it was also like, oh, this is what's supposed to happen. It's kind of like the surrender experiment. If you've ever read that book by Mickey Singer, another one of my top 5s for sure. I'll probably say that about 10 books. And then you're like, well, wait, what were the top 5 actually? And, his whole philosophy in that book is to surrender to the flow of life. And it's, what is life presenting to you? Like, what is the direction that it's wanting you to flow toward, and being mindful of that. And, being willing to put your preferences aside, your complacency, the safety, security, in order for the greater mission to come through. And so that's very much where the past, I would say 6 months in particular for me have been.
Man, that is profound and really excited. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Because I loved what you guys were doing, the kind of conscious sketches, specifically the one, and I already mentioned this before off air, but specifically the one where you sell your dad a life coaching package. I died laughing at that, dude. That
so
was
good.
So good. And your dad did an amazing job. But I would love it if you could maybe talk a little bit about bringing these worlds together, because that's kind of, so JP is, I took a course at the beginning of last year. It was Scott Dicker's course on comedy. He was the editor of The Onion and a founding member. And one of the things that he tells you to do is, he's like, pick a role model, pick somebody. And so in my mind, I'm like, Bill Hicks, George Carlin. But those guys are great, but the market's completely different now compared to what it is then.
Sure.
And so I was like, well, maybe I should pick somebody more modern. And so I picked JP.
Yep.
And just to study what he does and how he does it and those types of things. Not to obviously steal anybody's, I'm not trying to take anybody's act or anything.
Inspiration. Yep.
But I love the way that you and he both bring these worlds together of self-development, because you got to be able to make fun of yourself. You got to be able to make fun of the things even that you believe in and that you hold sacred. I think, or at least that's part of my philosophy. And so I think you did a great job with that. And he's doing a great job, really, like you said, he's taken a step from, parodying the new age, which is, it's a lot of fun.
Totally. It's great.
But he's really has a strong meaning in his comedy now. And so I think that's that's the thing that I really looked up to Bill Hicks and George Carlin, for. And so he's really taken that on. So can you talk a little bit about bringing those two worlds together, the world of comedy, as well as inspiration, self-help, development, and creating a better world?
Sure. So let me let that marinate for a second, because there's there's a turning point for me, and I referenced it a few moments ago, but when I had the cancel culture experience, I'll just quickly touch on that to give a little context. So this was literally on New Year's Eve. My fiance and I were just coming out of our 10-day quarantine experience after having gotten COVID. And we got COVID over Christmas. We found out right after we had gotten to Ohio to see my family there. We had both of our dogs with us, my pit bull and our little Frenchie. And we were staying in a hotel, and we started to feel like a little cold coming on, Pre-COVID, it was a fucking cold that you get once or twice a year, like not a big deal. Right. Felt totally fine. No respiratory or anything, just like sniffles. And we're like, before we go see like the whole family, because at that point I'd only seen my mom briefly. We were staying in a hotel. I was like, let's, for peace of mind, let's go get tested. Well, we didn't get the peace of mind because it came up positive for both of us. And so we're like, all right, shit, what do we do now? Well, we got to go home. So we rented a car and drove home. And it's funny because my family, they wanted us to stay. They're like, just like wear a mask or some shit and, just be a little ways away from us. We're having Christmas together. God damn it. And my grandpa, Papa, as I call him, he's a former pastor. And so he's just got that like, God fear and love for the Lord. And like, if it's his will be done, like we're protected kind of a vibe. And so, but even that being said, I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not going to knowingly expose my family to this kind of thing. So we drove home and we spent the holidays and we were going to go to New Orleans from Ohio to see my fiance's family. So it was like our whole vacation, like our holiday travel plans were just kind of thwarted by the COVID experience. So we did the 10-day quarantine and just a side note, like our COVID experience was very mild. A mild cold was the extent of it. Lost a little bit of the sense of taste and smell. And that was, that's the telltale sign of it. That lasted for a couple days, but no intense respiratory stuff. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm also not surprised because I take like great care of my body and I'm very just intentional of my health. And so I shared this on social media. I shared my experience and said how the week that I likely contracted COVID, I was very connected. I was living my life on my terms. I hosted a kind of conscious Christmas shindig at my house where we were doing that like every couple of months. We would showcase some of our videos and have a gathering at my place. And there's probably 40 or 50 people there. And I'm a part of several men's groups, some that I facilitate, others that I'm a part of. And, doing breath work and just being in each other's space, just living life. And we have a very special community here in Austin that we trust one another. It's sovereignty, autonomy, and people got COVID at times, and they would tell everybody, and then it would just be like, okay, cool, get there. We were mindful of it, but we were not letting it fully dictate our lives. So, some of that context set, I shared all of this in a post that went viral. And not in the good sense necessarily.
I remember that post. I remember reading it myself. Yeah.
Yeah. And it caught fire by like kind of the woke culture, cancel culture, that crowd. And it was just, thousands of just vitriol kind of energy and comments. And it was getting shared in Facebook groups with like thousands of people. And the name of these Facebook groups would be like, fuck white privileged cis males, right. Like entitlement, just all these. It was kind of shocking that there's groups that are that large, that is the name of the group. And the intention is to try and cancel people that they don't feel like live up to whatever their standards for living are. And so I wrote this post, and on New Year's Eve, I posted it. And this was, again, the day that our quarantine ended. And so we were going to have a little gathering with our friends for New Year's. And there was like 30 of us, I think. And literally moments before our little like kind of opening intention setting circle took place, my buddy comes up to me. It was actually my buddy Kitch and the kind of conscious partner. And he was like, dude, have you seen what's happening to your post? And instantly I felt this like a, shot of energy in my body. Because I knew that it was a pretty bold proclamation and that it was going to be a little controversial, but I didn't necessarily know the extent of it at all. And so he shared that with me, and then I still didn't look at it, but he just kind of like said a few things, and then the panic kind of settled in. And JP was there, and I was just like, dude, JP, give me something here, man. I'm feeling fear. I'm feeling like all these things. And he just delivers this incredible little monologue speech to me that inspires the shit out of me, and had an incredible evening. But it was like, the ramifications had not even begun yet. And over the course of the next several days and weeks, it was like those kicks in the dick from the universe that I was talking about, that it was like, hey, it's time to let some things go, make space for what's to come through next. Like that was just happening back to back. And it was the most challenging time in my fiance and I's relationship. And we had just gotten engaged not even a couple months before that. And as it was happening, and certainly in hindsight, it was very much the, oh, okay, cool. I see it. This is happening for me, not to me kind of vibes. And like, what is the silver lining? Like what wants to be expressed and what kind of up-leveling opportunity do I have in the midst of this? And so to bring this back to your original question of like the comedy stuff, it was like that season of comedy was awesome. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, if I'm really being honest with myself, in hindsight, especially, it was like the comedy was definitely a big part of the expression of me that wanted to come through, certainly in that season. And it was like, all right, there's other things in your life to address, preparing for marriage and for a family, and that gestation period that I referenced. And then on the other side of that, there's an opportunity to leverage that again in a new container that is more authentic to who you are and who you're becoming. And so that's where in the past, I would say, probably a couple months in particular, that is starting to reveal itself. And I'll just make one little kind of point to that specifically. I produced a micro festival here in Austin at a friend's ranch, the same place that we're actually getting married later this year. And it was called Mostly Woke. And so that was the name of the micro festival. We had like 65 people there, and I was the festival daddy. And so we had a committee, or like a production squad of my closest friends, that kind of coalition I referenced earlier. And they deemed me the festival daddy, the captain of this ship for this initiative. And I, all of us, like delivered, man. And it was very much using my facilitation, my initiation, rites of passage kind of skills, and my professional edutainer, as I like to say, that kind of comedic element in this weekend experience that certainly had the backdrop of a festival with music and some workshops and things like that. But what people got, they did not expect. I knew what my intention was, and I was excited to really give it my all. And the outcome was just, again, it was leveraging the comedy and all the other parts of myself for this in-person experience where people legitimately left transformed. Like many people said it was the best experience, the most important of their life kind of a thing, which is like, oh, yes. And I would have never been prepared for that. And I wouldn't have had the space for that. I wouldn't have been able to show up in that way had these other things not happened.
Man, that's powerful. And, you know, I talk about it a lot, you know, and I've seen it myself, maybe not quite as intensely as what you have experienced with the cancel culture thing, but just how a lot of these situations that we see as like, oh shit, you know, like this is bad, this is not good. But ultimately that can open up a completely new space you didn't even know existed. And you can walk right into that. I think what you're doing is really inspiring. It's powerful. People need it right now.
Thank you, man.
And I love how you're, like I said, man, fusing this stuff together with a sense of humor, because the new age is so pious, you know, JP clowning on it to begin, you know, with was really the right thing to do.
Totally.
And then, you know, now as you guys are evolving and progressing and really going into uncharted territory, I think that bed of humor, that fundamental ability to laugh and take things not so seriously, can really help to open up like, okay, what is happening for me, right? Like what is the advantage in this situation? That's something I try to focus on. And it doesn't mean that you don't say, damn, this sucks, when you're
of course
in the middle of a shit storm, you know,
not going to bypass it. Yeah, this fucking sucks.
Exactly. But to be able to pick up the pieces and make it, you know, something that you can grow from and develop from and serve more people with is, dude, that's fucking amazing. So good for you, man. I'm
thank you, bro.
I'm really happy to hear that. And I know that you know, you guys have a lot going on. Are you also going to be at Freedom Fest? I know that he's going to be there.
I'm not planning on it. When and where is it?
That is in South Dakota. In the later this month, I believe JP's on there. It's got like what was the libertarian lady who ran for president. It's sad that I don't remember her.
Yeah, I can't remember her name off the
I
top of my
voted
head.
for her.
Jorgensen? Is that who it is?
Joe Jordan.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep. She's going to be there. There's like several other people. I know JP's on the bill. I sent them an email and just was like, hey, what's up? Because my friend Lindsay, she actually lives in South Dakota there. We went to Red Pill together and interviewed.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Nice.
it was a really cool experience. It was a little bit different than I kind of expected, but we had an amazing time. We interviewed some people, and really she's trying to lay that groundwork for, just bringing more community together.
Was on that note of Red Pill, was Elliot Holst there perchance? I know he's been in that community.
I didn't see him.
Okay.
I didn't
He's
see him there.
Been a major mentor of mine throughout the years. Not super connected to him of late, but I still just have so much reverence and respect and appreciation for him. So anyway, just curious.
Yes, he is great. The people that really blew the doors off for me were Dr. Shiva Ayudurai was there. Andrew Kaufman, Dr. Andrew Kaufman was there. He was great. And G. Edward Griffin. He's the one who holds it. And that guy is a freaking legend. Like I was emailing with him and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm emailing with you. He told me I was doing good work. And I was like, oh my God, I can, because that guy's absolutely amazing. I mean, he interviewed Yuri Bismanoff, it's like, but anyway, anyway, I just wanted to ask and see if you might be up there for that. Cause I think she's planning on being up there.
That's cool. Yeah. Pretty sure I won't be, but looking forward to maybe a future one.
Dude, it's cool. There's some really neat things popping up in this sort of community, or these communities that are overlapping. I would say more open-minded types of communities. Yeah, which is just the best way I know how to define it. Because it's great. I don't think any of us are taking sides here. We believe in sovereignty, autonomy, individual rights. I mean, so it's not like there's some group or whatever, but I did Pork Fest this year. I'm doing the thing in Michigan, Midwest Peace and Liberty. And so there's more and more of these communities, kind of popping up and spilling over into each other. I think it's amazing. I'm here for it, to celebrate it and encourage it as much as possible. And
amen, brother.
Dude, I appreciate you and all that you're doing to continue with this. So tell us a little bit about manifestation and how people can get involved in that. Yep. And we'll get out of here.
So manifestation is my take on men's work, if you will. It's my brand of personal development, which is very sincere, but not too fucking serious. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of meaningful fun. And so we have like weekly calls, and, it's somewhat of the classic structure of what you would imagine, like a virtual course / program, men's group kind of thing looks like, but not classic, because you got the conscious bro at the helm. And so like one example of one of the personal development practices we do that is something that I think is so potent and underutilized / not even really known about by most people is freestyling. So literally freestyle rapping. And so you're put on the spot, you throw on an instrumental beat for a minute and you just speak off the cuff. And you don't have to rhyme necessarily. Some people do, and it sounds great. Sometimes it sounds stupid, and that's part of the fun. It's just like, how present can you be and playful? And that's just such a practice that, once again, can permeate so many areas of your life. And like another little example I'll give is we have a Bromework challenge. So it's like homework, but for bros, called Love Thy Neighbor. And so the idea there is, for a week in particular, and really throughout the whole experience, for a week, we're really dedicated to enhancing our relationships. Okay. And so on one of the calls, and I'll just maybe give this last little tidbit before talking about it more in general, the context is set where, hey, there's someone in your life, at least one, and whoever it is that comes up first, that's who you're going to go for, where you get to have a clearing conversation with. It's something that's been on your heart or mind, whether it's a family member, it's a previous boss, it's a former lover, it's whatever it is. There's an open loop there that you get to address. And I set this context, and instantly you can see people like in their faces, they know who it is. And so challenge is, live on this call together, you're going to send them a voice note in front of all of us, expressing yourself fully. And so for an hour, we'll go around the horn and everybody will do that thing. And it is one of the most special experiences I've ever witnessed and been a part of, where people are just crying. There's so much release. There's so much connection. It's really cool. And so that's like the real-time courage stuff that we do. And so, yeah, it's 8 weeks. There's about 20 guys is usually like the sweet spot that I like to have for that. And I do it typically around once a quarter, like 3 to 4 times a year. And the next one starts officially in, I think, 2 weeks from today. So really excited about that. And and you can go to my Instagram to check it out, conscious.bro. And there's like a link for the landing page that talks more about it. You can apply there and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that'd be July 26th. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
Cool. Awesome. So I'll put the link to that as well in the show notes. Man, that sounds incredibly powerful. Like,
it's cool.
Yeah, that's putting people on the spot right there.
Yep.
But I think that's great. I think that's awesome. Coaching people through their communication right now is a really important time, I think, to connect, especially with people who view things differently. And just because somebody sees the world differently doesn't mean, I'm a big proponent of, like, I'm not going to be the one who's going to put up a wall, whether it's my friends in comedy who, are, have a certain view of the world, or my friends in whatever, it doesn't matter. My family, no matter what they do, I'm going to, do everything that I can. I'm obviously not perfect, but to keep lines of communication open, to keep the love flowing, and not be the person that puts up a boundary. It shouldn't be put up anyway, I don't think.
Yep.
If it does, that's okay. It's like kind of the non-aggression sort of principle, where it's like, I'm not going to be the asshole. You know what I'm saying? So,
I love that. And a couple little nuggets for that. Something I've heard JP say is, I like to be with people that are like-hearted, not necessarily like-minded.
I love that.
So good, right? Like, I don't care necessarily if you have the same beliefs as me, like the heady concepts, whatever. But if we can be in connection with one another through just like a shared value of love, sky's the fucking limit. And said another way, it's like, I'm not about agreement-based connection. I'm about like fun, conditional heart connection, which is just such a different game. And as the masses, as we reach a tipping point where people like catch on to that thing, that's the healing the world wants.
Man, that's so good. I love that. What a great note to end on.
Yeah.
So I'll be sure to put all your links in the show notes. Anything else, any other way you want to try to get or let people know how they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, my Instagram is best. And I will say, that is part of the umbrella of the business I run with my fiance called Sex and Love Co. And so we do relationship and sex coaching, and you can go to thatsexchick.com to find out more about that. So anything and everything that has to do with like health and relationships, that's my bag, baby.
All right, dude, that's awesome. I love it. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, man. I wish you all the best, and stay in touch. Let me know if there's anything I can help you with, and I'm more than happy to do that. And we'll definitely hope to connect again very, very soon.
Thank you for having me, man. If you get your sweet ass out to Austin, let's do the damn thing, bro.
All right. That sounds great. I would love to. I love Austin. It's a wonderful place. So I plan to see you very, very soon.
Awesome, man.
All right, man. We'll appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Talk to you soon, brother.